I was at the beach with my kids. A strange text instructed, "Leave quietly. Don't tell your children." I obeyed. What I discovered was their horrifying plan, and the police were already on their way. In my 78 years, I never imagined my own children would attempt to murder me for money. But that message on the beach saved my life. My name is Joan Morales. I am 78 years old, and what I am about to tell you changed my life forever. It was July 15, 2023, a perfect summer Saturday on the beaches of Chicago. It had been 2 years since I was widowed, since I lost my dear Robert in September of 2021. My children, Sergio, Christina, and Raquel, had insisted we spend the day together as a family. I must confess, I was thrilled. Since Robert's death, my family relationships had grown distant. Sergio was 55 and always seemed busy with his business. Christina, at 52, lived absorbed in her world of luxury. And Raquel, the youngest at 48, barely visited me. But that day, they seemed different, more attentive, more loving. We were set up under a blue umbrella near a beachside bar. The lake was calm, seagulls circled overhead, and I watched families enjoying the day. My children chatted excitedly about their lives and their jobs, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was part of something. That is when my phone rang. It was 2:47 p.m. exactly. An unknown number. Normally, I do not answer calls from numbers I do not recognize, but something compelled me to look at the text message that had just arrived. Leave quietly. Don't say anything to your children. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the lake breeze. Who would send me something like that? And why specifically mention my children? I looked at Sergio, Christina, and Raquel, who were still talking as if nothing had happened, but now their laughter seemed strange to me, almost forced. The phone vibrated again. Another message from the same number. It's urgent. Your life depends on it. I'm in the parking lot **red car. Trust me my heart began to pound. All my life, I have been a cautious woman. But I have also learned to trust my instincts, and my instincts were screaming that something was terribly wrong. I feel a little dizzy, I lied, rising slowly from the lounge chair. I think it was too much sun. I'm going to take a short walk to cool off. Sergio stood up immediately. Do you want me to come with you, Mom? No, I replied with a smile I hoped looked natural. I just need to walk a bit. I'll be right back. Christina looked at me with what appeared to be genuine concern. Be careful, Mom. Don't go too far. I walked toward the parking lot with steps I tried to make casual, but my mind was racing. Who knew I was here? Who knew my children well enough to send me such a specific warning? Then I saw her. A woman of about 35 with brown hair tied in a ponytail was waiting beside a red Ford Focus. Her eyes held a mix of nervousness and determination that I recognized immediately. Nora, I whispered in disbelief. Nora Jimenez had worked as a housekeeper at Sergio's house for 8 years. I knew her well. She was a responsible and discreet woman. A single mother to a little girl named Valerie, who was 8. She had always shown me respect, and in return, I had ensured Sergio treated her well and paid her a fair wage. Mrs. Morales, she said, her voice trembling. Thank you for coming. I know this must seem very strange, but I need you to listen carefully. Your life is in danger. The world seemed to stop around me. The noise of children playing on the beach, the sound of the waves, the murmur of conversations, everything faded as I processed her words. What are you talking about, Nora? She glanced nervously toward the beach where my children were surely wondering why I was taking so long. We can't talk here. Get in the car, please. I have something to show you. My instincts told me to trust her. For 8 years, Nora had proven to be an honest and loyal person. If she was risking so much to warn me about something, it had to be serious. I got into the passenger seat, and she started the car immediately. Mrs. Morales, she began as she drove toward a quieter area, what I'm about to tell you will be very hard to believe, but your children are planning to hurt you. Nora's words echoed in my head like alarm bells. My children planning to hurt me, it seemed impossible to believe, but the seriousness on her face compelled me to listen. She stopped the car in a secluded industrial area away from prying eyes. With trembling hands, she retrieved her cell phone. Mrs. Morales, I've worked at Sergio's house since 2015. Yesterday, while I was cleaning his office, I found some papers that made me suspicious. But what I discovered later, her voice broke. I took pictures as proof. She swiped the screen and showed me the first image. It was a bank document with my signature, but I had no memory of ever signing it. Do you recognize this signature, Mrs. Morales? I examined the screen closely. It was undoubtedly my handwriting, my characteristic signature. But something was deeply disturbing. The date was July 8, 2023, just a week ago. Yes, it's my signature, but I tried to remember. Wait, that was the day of the barbecue at Sergio's house. They asked me to sign several papers. They said they were routine forms for the family's health insurance. Nora nodded gravely. That's what I thought, but look at the document you actually signed. She zoomed in on the image. My eyes widened in horror. It was not for health insurance. It was a bank transfer authorization for $950,000, my entire fortune, the savings of a lifetime of honest work. This can't be real, I murmured, feeling the blood run cold in my veins. There's more, Nora continued, showing me another picture. This time it was a power of attorney document, granting Sergio absolute control over all my assets. And this, the third image left me breathless. It was a draft of a will, clearly forged, where I left my entire estate to my 3 children, eliminating any charitable donations I had planned for my church. But how is this possible? I was conscious when I signed. I remember that day perfectly. Nora looked at me with a mix of compassion and urgency. Mrs. Morales, do you remember feeling strange after you ate? Disoriented, confused, drowsy. A shiver ran down my spine. I did remember feeling unusually tired that afternoon. I had blamed my discomfort on the heat and my age, but now I suspected the wine I had admitted to drinking. I found this in Sergio's kitchen, she said, showing me another photo. It was a small bottle with a medical label. Brozapam, 6 milligrams. There were also traces of a colorless liquid I didn't recognize. My mind raced, connecting the dots. The insistent family lunch, my strange drowsiness, the documents I signed without reading completely because I trusted my family. They drugged me, I whispered, more to myself than to her. I think so, yes, but the worst is yet to come. Nora took a deep breath before continuing. Last night, while I was clearing the plates after dinner, I overheard a phone conversation Sergio was having. He was talking to someone about a very large debt, Mrs. Morales. He mentioned the amount of $380,000. The figure hit me like a punch. It was a fortune that none of my children could gather with their regular incomes. Sergio sounded desperate. He was telling the person on the phone that the old problem would be solved soon, that he had access to the necessary funds. When he mentioned your name, Mrs. Morales, I knew I had to warn you. Who do they owe so much money to? I'm not entirely sure, but I heard names that scared me. People from the south side of Chicago involved in illegal loans. Sergio repeated the name Miguel the Blade several times. I knew that reputation. Chicago had its dangerous areas, and ruthless loan sharks were a reality I preferred to ignore. But now that reality had reached my own family. But if they already have access to my money with those forged documents, why do they need? Nora interrupted me with a grave expression. Because there's a problem, Mrs. Morales. The banks are being more cautious with large transfers from seniors. They need you to be present, conscious, and personally ratify any transactions over $100,000. Then I understood the extent of the danger. It wasn't enough to have drugged me once to get my signature. They needed to keep me under control, manipulable, perhaps permanently unable to make independent decisions. There's something else you should know, Nora added in a barely audible voice. This morning, before they left for the beach, I heard Christina on the phone with someone. She mentioned something about a plan B in case you became a problem. Plan B? I couldn't hear everything clearly, but she mentioned words like accident, stairs at home, and quick inheritance. The horror of the situation hit me with full force. My own children, my own flesh and blood, weren't just planning to rob me. They were willing to get rid of me if necessary. That's why I sent you the message, Mrs. Morales. Last night, I called the police and explained everything. They're investigating, but they need more evidence. Earlier today, they told me they would come to search your house this afternoon. The police are involved? Yes. Inspector Thomas Grant is in charge of the case. He was the one who suggested I warn you discreetly when you went out together today. The police are already on their way to your house to execute a search warrant. My mind tried to process all this overwhelming information. In less than an hour, I had gone from enjoying a family day at the beach to discovering that my children were planning to drug me, rob me, and possibly kill me. What do we do now, Nora? We have to go directly to the police station. Inspector Grant wants to take your statement and do a blood test, too. See if there are still traces of the drugs they gave you last week. I felt a mix of gratitude and terror. Gratitude for this brave woman who had risked everything to save me, and terror for the inconceivable betrayal of my own children. Thank you, Nora. I don't know how I can ever repay you for what you've done for me. She looked at me with determination. You always treated me with respect and dignity, Mrs. Morales. I could never let them hurt you. As we headed to the police station, a question hammered in my mind. How would my family reach this point of desperation? And above all, what else were they willing to do to get my money? The drive to the police department took only 15 minutes, but it felt like an eternity. Nora drove with obvious nervousness, constantly checking the rearview mirrors while I tried to grasp the true scale of the conspiracy against me. Mrs. Morales, she said, breaking the tense silence. There are more details you need to know before you talk to Inspector Grant. What I discovered is much more complex than I initially imagined. She pulled over on a side street near the station and turned to me with a worried expression. Last night, after overhearing Sergio's phone call, I decided to investigate further. I waited until everyone was asleep and searched his office thoroughly. I found a hidden folder behind some books. She took out her phone again and showed me pictures of documents that made my blood run cold. They were receipts for extravagant purchases. A brand new Mercedes-Benz for $95,000 in Sergio's name. Luxury jewelry for Christina worth $45,000. And a condo on the coast that Raquel had recently bought for $180,000. None of your children have enough income to afford this, Nora explained. Sergio makes about $3,500 a month at his consulting job. Christina gets around $2,800 as an administrator, and Raquel barely makes $2,200 at her part-time job. It's impossible for them to afford such a lifestyle. The math was crushing. My children's combined income barely reached $9,000 a month. Far too little to sustain the lavish lifestyle they had evidently embraced. How, then, had they funded such extravagance? That's the most chilling part, Mrs. Morales, Nora said. I discovered private loan agreements with illegal lenders. The terms are ruthless: 15% monthly interest, personal guarantees involving physical threats, and unattainable repayment deadlines. She showed me copies of the contracts. The creditors' names were unfamiliar, but the sums were staggering. Sergio owed $150,000. Christina $120,000, and Raquel $110,000, a total of $380,000 owed to individuals who, per the contract terms, would resort to violent collection methods without hesitation. This Miguel, known as the Blade, was, from my discreet inquiries, the head of a loan sharking operation in Chicago's rougher neighborhoods, with a criminal record for extortion, severe threats, and assault. His reputation for brutal collection tactics sent a shiver through me. My children had entangled themselves with one of the city's most dangerous lenders. When are these loans due? I asked. Nora glanced at her photos. The final deadline is July 20th, 2023, 5 days from now. Failure to pay in full will bring severe consequences. The urgency behind their scheme now made sense. They faced dire repercussions, potentially physical violence, property damage, or worse, if they couldn't access my money immediately. There's something even more disturbing, Nora continued, her voice trembling. She played a low-quality audio recording from Sergio's phone, which he had neglected to delete. It was unmistakably Sergio speaking to a man with a thick Chicago accent. Miguel, I need more time. The old lady's more suspicious than we thought. The response was cold. No more time, Sergio. You know the rules. $380,000 by Thursday, or we start with the corrections. Sergio replied, I have a plan. My mother has nearly $1 million saved. I just need her to cooperate. A long pause followed before Sergio's chilling words. If she doesn't cooperate, we'll have to hasten her departure, a household accident, something natural for her age. The inheritance will be processed in weeks. Tears streamed down my face. Hearing my son plot my death with such detachment was more painful than any financial betrayal. When was this recorded? I asked. The night before last, Nora replied. Sergio was in the garden, thinking no one could hear, but his bedroom window was open, and his phone's automatic recorder, used for work meetings, captured it. Are the others involved? I pressed. Fully, she said. I found WhatsApp messages between the 3 siblings coordinating details. Christina researched medications that could mimic a natural heart attack. Raquel discreetly inquired with a funeral home about rapid cremation procedures. The depth of their conspiracy overwhelmed me. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment act of desperation but a carefully orchestrated plan. With each sibling assigned specific roles to ensure my elimination and swift access to my inheritance. What drugs did they use on me last week? I asked. From what I found, Nora said. A mix of brozapam, a potent anti-anxiety drug, and a liquid derivative called citralum, which causes temporary confusion, short-term memory loss, and excessive trust, leading victims to sign documents without question. Where did they get these? I asked. Christina works at a pharmaceutical company, Nora explained. She has access to controlled medications and understands their effects. She'd been preparing this mixture for weeks. The pieces fell into place. The family lunch, their insistence I try the special wine, it was all calculated to incapacitate me and secure my signature on documents I barely recalled reading. Why risk so much to help me, Nora? You could have walked away and found another job. She looked at me with resolve and emotion. Mrs. Morales, you treated me with dignity when I needed it most. When Valerie was born and I became a single mother, you ensured Sergio granted me paid maternity leave. When my daughter was ill last year, you covered her medical bills without prompting. Her words touched me deeply. Besides, she continued, if I let them harm someone as kind as you, what example would I set for my daughter? Some principles outweigh any job. As we approached the police station's entrance, a grim certainty settled over me. The family I had cherished and protected for decades was prepared to kill me for money. If I didn't act swiftly, I could be dead in 5 days. While waiting in the station's lobby for Inspector Grant, my mind embarked on a painful reflection. Nora's revelations had torn open a deep wound, forcing me to reassess the past 2 years with devastating clarity. It began on September 23, 2021, when Robert, my husband of 52 years, passed away after a 6-month battle with pancreatic cancer. I clearly recall how my children acted during Robert's final days, attentive, affectionate, seemingly heartbroken over their father's impending loss. But with this new perspective, details I once saw as filial devotion now carried a sinister undertone. In Robert's last weeks, Sergio persistently inquired about our family's financial details, claiming it was to prepare for post-funeral paperwork. Christina frequently asked about my savings and retirement plans, saying, "Mom, we want to ensure you have everything you need." At the time, I viewed their persistence as genuine care for my future. Raquel, the youngest, was subtler, offering to join me for doctor's appointments and bank meetings under the guise of supporting me during tough times. I never suspected she was memorizing details about my accounts and investments. The months following Robert's funeral were the darkest of my life. The house felt hollow, silent, filled with memories that overwhelmed me. Robert had been my anchor, my reason to rise each morning. Without him, I sank into a deep depression that nearly consumed me. During this time, I found solace in faith. St. Michael's Parish became my refuge. Father Anthony, a compassionate 65-year-old priest, welcomed me with patience and understanding. I began attending Sunday Mass, then weekday services, and eventually became a daily parishioner. "Joan," Father Anthony would say, "the pain you feel is the other side of the love you shared with Robert. Don't flee from it. Embrace it as part of your eternal bond with him." His words brought comfort, and gradually, prayer and meditation within the church community gave me peace, structure, and a sense of belonging when loneliness threatened to overwhelm me. During this period of spiritual renewal, my children's visits increased. Initially, I was overjoyed, believing we were finally forging the family closeness Robert had always desired. Sergio visited on Tuesdays, Christina on Thursdays, and Raquel on Saturdays, a seemingly perfect routine of support. But now, reflecting on those visits, I see troubling patterns. They always inquired about my health in specific ways. Was I taking any medications? Was I having memory issues? Had I considered a power of attorney for medical emergencies? Questions about money were frequent but masked as concern. "Mom, have you thought about consolidating your savings into one account for easier management? Wouldn't online access to your funds be more convenient? Have you updated your will since Dad passed?" Sergio was particularly persistent about the will. In January 2022, just 4 months after the funeral, he urged me to visit a lawyer as a precaution. Trusting his responsible nature, I agreed. I vividly recall that visit to Mr. Garcia, the lawyer. Sergio stayed by my side throughout, as Mr. Garcia presented documents to, as Sergio put it, modernize my will and protect my assets. I signed them confidently, believing I was securing my children's future. Now, I question whether those papers included hidden powers of attorney or bank authorizations slipped among legitimate clauses. Christina adopted a different but equally effective tactic, positioning herself as the family's unofficial administrator. "Mom, let me handle these tedious bills and paperwork," she'd say. "You focus on healing emotionally." Gradually, she took over paying my utilities, managing bank correspondence, and renewing insurance and subscriptions, gaining full access to my financial details. Raquel, meanwhile, took the most subtle and manipulative approach, presenting herself as the empathetic daughter who understood my grief. "Mom, you can always confide in me. The others don't always get it, but I'm here for you." Her visits involved long talks about Robert, shared memories, and plans to honor his legacy. During these intimate conversations, she gleaned details about my charitable intentions, my plans to donate to the parish, and my future aspirations. Now, I see each child had a specialized role in their conspiracy. Sergio managed legal and notary matters. Christina controlled daily financial administration. And Raquel manipulated my emotions to keep me vulnerable and trusting. The past 6 months brought the most noticeable changes. Their visits grew more frequent but also more tense. I noticed exchanged glances, conversations that halted when I entered the room, and a palpable stress I couldn't decipher. In June 2023, Sergio suggested regular family gatherings at his house. "Mom, now that you're feeling better, we should spend more time together as a family. Dad would have wanted us united." Those Sunday lunches became weekly events I eagerly anticipated, believing we had finally achieved the family harmony Robert dreamed of. But for my children, those gatherings served a darker purpose: to study my routines, assess my mental state, and lay the groundwork for their final plan. The lunch on July 8, when they drugged me to obtain my signature, was not a desperate impulse but the culmination of months of meticulous preparation, a carefully crafted strategy to seize my assets. As I sat in the police station waiting room, surrounded by posters on public safety and crime prevention, a bitter truth settled on my conscience. For 2 years, I had mistaken calculated manipulation for filial devotion. My emotional vulnerability after Robert's death had made me prey, not a source of comfort for my children. The faith that had guided my healing now faced its greatest challenge. How could I reconcile Christian teachings of forgiveness and family love with the harsh truth that my own children were prepared to kill me for money? "Joan Morales, please come in." Inspector Thomas Grant's voice rang out in the waiting room with professional authority. A man of about 50, of medium height and sturdy build, his piercing gaze instilled immediate confidence. His impeccable uniform and serious demeanor steadied me amidst the emotional turmoil I was enduring. "Good morning, Inspector. This is Nora Jimenez, who alerted me to the situation," I said as we entered his office. "Miss Jimenez, your call last night was timely. We've been working diligently since then to verify the information you provided," the inspector replied, gesturing for us to sit before his desk, cluttered with files and documents. The office was sparse yet efficient, its white walls adorned only with police certificates, a detailed Chicago map, and official photographs of the mayor and state officials. 2 computers ran simultaneously, displaying databases I couldn't discern from my seat. "Joan, before we take your formal statement, we need to conduct urgent medical tests. Our forensic team requires blood and hair samples to detect any substances administered without your consent," the inspector explained. "Is it still possible to detect anything after a week?" I asked, concerned. "Depending on the substances, yes. Brozapam can remain detectable in blood for 3 to 7 days, and certain metabolites linger in hair for up to 3 months. If they use the combination Ms. Jimenez described, we'll find evidence." A forensic technician entered with a professional medical kit. The procedure was swift but thorough: blood draw, hair samples, and a basic physical exam to assess my health. As it proceeded, the inspector outlined the legal steps ahead, based on Nora's photographic evidence. "We've secured a court order to tap your children's communications and search their homes. The operation began 2 hours ago." "They're already at my house?" "Indeed. A specialized team is conducting simultaneous searches at Sergio, Christina, and Raquel's residences. We've also requested the bank freeze their accounts to prevent unauthorized transfers during the investigation." The police's efficiency impressed me. In less than 24 hours since Nora's call, they had orchestrated a complex operation to protect my interests and gather further evidence against my children. "Inspector, what happens when my children return from the beach and find the search?" "We've timed the operation to coincide with their absence. Our agents are instructed to complete the searches before they return. However, we need your cooperation for a critical phase of the plan." Grant leaned forward, adopting a confidential tone. "Joan, we propose a controlled operation to obtain direct confessions from your children. The documentary evidence is strong, but recorded confessions would significantly bolster the case." "What kind of operation?" "We'd need you to return to Sergio's house tonight, acting normally, but wearing hidden recording devices. If we can capture them admitting to the plan, we'll have undeniable evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud and possibly premeditated murder." The idea terrified me. Returning to the place where my children had planned to drug me again, knowing their desperation and looming debt deadlines, felt incredibly dangerous. "Isn't there a less risky alternative?" "I understand your concern," the inspector said, consulting his notes. "We have evidence of forgery, photographs of controlled substances, and incriminating phone recordings. However, a skilled lawyer could argue you signed those documents knowingly, that the medications were for legitimate medical use, and that the recorded conversations are open to interpretation." Nora, who had been silent, spoke with resolve. "Mrs. Morales, I'll be there to protect you. I can ensure you don't consume anything they offer and maintain constant contact with the police." "Miss Jimenez is correct," the inspector affirmed. Inspector Grant confirmed, "Miss Jimenez will be our official collaborator in the operation. We'll also install external surveillance equipment and position rapid response units within a 2-block radius." "What if something goes wrong?" I asked. What if they realize they're being recorded or decide to escalate their plan? We've accounted for those risks, Grant replied. You'll carry an emergency device that triggers immediate intervention if you press a specific button. Additionally, we'll establish security codes for Miss Jimenez to request help discreetly. He showed me a tiny device resembling a shirt button, equipped with a high-sensitivity microphone and GPS transmitter. Its sophisticated yet discreet technology impressed me. Consider the consequences of not acting decisively, Grant continued. Your children are under immense pressure from violent lenders. If they don't secure the money in the next few days, they may resort to desperate, irreversible actions. His words forced me to face a grim reality. My children had crossed moral boundaries with no return. If I didn't act now, with police protection and legal evidence, I might not have another chance. When would this operation take place? I asked. Ideally, tonight, Grant replied. Our investigations indicate your children planned to invite you to dinner tomorrow to finalize family matters. Acting before their timeline gives us a tactical advantage. How? Do I explain my sudden return after leaving the beach? Nora offered a plausible alibi. You felt unwell during your walk. I found you disoriented near the parking lot and brought you to Sergio's house so your children could care for you. She nodded, reinforcing the plan. I'll say I found you dizzy and concerned about your blood pressure. They know I'm discreet and won't suspect I contacted the police. The forensic technician returned with preliminary test results. Inspector, we've confirmed significant concentrations of brozapam and traces of a substance consistent with citralum derivatives. The levels suggest high-dose administration about a week ago. Perfect, Joan, Grant said. This scientifically confirms you were drugged, giving us a solid basis for criminal charges. The validation of Nora's suspicions brought both relief and horror. Relief from having objective proof of betrayal. Horror at the confirmation that my children had chemically incapacitated me to steal from me. Inspector, I'll participate in the operation, I said. But I need one assurance: if my life is in real danger, your agents will intervene immediately, regardless of the recording status. You have my personal and professional commitment, Grant assured. Your safety is our top priority. As we left the station to finalize the nighttime operations details, a stark realization solidified. These were not the children I raised or the adults I thought I'd instilled with ethical values. They were desperate criminals willing to do anything for money, and I would be the instrument of their downfall. It was 6:03 p.m. when we returned to the station to complete preparations. Inspector Grant had assembled a specialized team, including surveillance technicians, communications experts, and rapid intervention unit agents. Their professionalism greatly reassured me. Joan, meet Sergeant Lopez, our undercover operations specialist, and Officer Ruiz, our recording devices expert, Grant said. Leading me to a meeting room equipped with detailed maps of Sergio's neighborhood, Sergeant Lopez, a 35-year-old with an athletic build and sharp gaze, displayed several tiny electronic devices on the table. Mrs. Morales, you'll use 3 redundant recording systems to ensure we capture the conversation with perfect clarity, he explained, handling the devices carefully. First, a directional microphone integrated into a shirt button, recording audio within a 15-foot radius. Second, a GPS transmitter hidden in your belt, allowing real-time location tracking. The third, and most critical, is a coin-sized micro-camera installed in your glasses, providing a direct feed of what you see, enabling immediate intervention if we detect imminent danger. Officer Ruiz nodded, affirming the technical setup. All devices are synchronized with our mobile command center, stationed 150 yards from Sergio's house, providing continuous audiovisual feed and immediate response capability, Sergeant Lopez explained. How does the emergency system work? I asked. He handed me a device disguised as a pen. Press this end twice consecutively to trigger a silent alarm in our command center. Agents will storm the house within 90 seconds. 3 presses signal immediate danger, prompting an even faster response. Nora, who had been observing intently, raised a vital concern. How can I communicate if I notice something suspicious before Mrs. Morales activates the emergency? Excellent question, Miss Jimenez, Officer Ruiz replied, presenting a seemingly ordinary cell phone. It's programmed with speed dial codes, 1-4. Situation under control. 2-4, caution required, and 3 for immediate intervention. Inspector Grant displayed aerial photographs of Sergio's residential area, marking strategic positions with red indicators. We'll have 6 agents in 3 unmarked vehicles, a delivery van across from the park, a private car on the southeast corner, and an electric maintenance motorcycle on the back street. All access points will be monitored. What if my children notice something off in my behavior? I asked. Sergeant Lopez consulted his notes. If they question your demeanor, attribute it to the medical scare at the beach. It's natural for someone your age to feel shaken after a dizzy spell. Nora added, I'll say I found you distressed about your health and insistent on returning to be with family. They know my cautious nature and won't doubt my account. What time should we arrive at Sergio's? I asked. The inspector glanced at his watch. Our surveillance confirms your children returned from the beach an hour ago. Microphones installed during the morning search indicate they're discussing your sudden absence. They're nervous but not suspicious. Did you find more evidence during the search? Substantially, Grant replied. We recovered the hidden folder Miss Jimenez mentioned, plus 3 additional cell phones with communications to illegal lenders. We also found a bottle of citralum in Sergio's refrigerator, labeled as medicine for mom. The revelation hit hard. They had been so methodical as to prepare counterfeit medications to drug me repeatedly. What kind of conversation should I have with them? I asked. Ideally, express concerns about your will or savings, Sergeant Lopez advised. If you mention worries about your money's security, they'll likely reassure you by offering to manage it, giving us a chance to record incriminating confessions. Officer Ruiz added. Mention feeling confused about documents you recently signed. If they think you're questioning the July 8 signatures, they might reveal how they obtained them. Should I confront them directly with my suspicions? Absolutely not, Inspector Grant said firmly. Confrontation could heighten their alertness and provoke violence. Act like a concerned but trusting mother, letting them disclose compromising details. Nora offered a practical suggestion. Mrs. Morales could say she's grateful for her responsible children caring for her. That might lower their guard, encouraging them to speak freely about their plans to protect her. How long should the visit last? I asked. Between 1 and 2 hours, Lopez calculated. Enough time to capture substantial recordings without raising suspicion about an unusually long stay. The inspector handed me a sealed envelope. Joan, these are transcripts of today's intercepted calls between your children and Miguel the Blade. The threats have escalated significantly. I read, horrified, as Miguel demanded immediate payment, detailing sadistic consequences for noncompliance, specific promises of physical violence targeting the entire family. When will you move against Miguel the Blade? I asked. Simultaneously with tonight's operation, Grant replied. While we record your children's confessions, another team will arrest Miguel and his organization, dismantling the entire network at once. The operation's complexity struck me. It wasn't just about family fraud but a broader investigation into a criminal syndicate affecting multiple victims. Are you mentally prepared, Joan? Officer Ruiz asked with genuine concern. Hearing your children confess to plotting your murder will be emotionally devastating. Her question prompted deep reflection. My renewed faith over the past 2 years had taught me forgiveness and compassion, but also justice and the duty to protect the innocent. Officer, I said, I've lived 78 years, raising 3 children with values of honesty, family loyalty, and respect for life. Learning that my own children had forsaken those values is heart-wrenching, but permitting them to persist in their betrayal would dishonor everything my husband and I sought to instill in them. Nora clasped my hand in a gesture of support. Mrs. Morales, you're not alone in this. We're all here to protect you and ensure justice is served. Inspector Grant glanced at his watch and addressed the team. It's 7:15 p.m. Deployment begins at 7:30. Joan and Miss Jimenez will arrive at Sergio's house at precisely 8 p.m. By then, all systems will be fully operational. As they discreetly equipped me with the recording devices and tested their functionality, a blend of fear and resolve surged within me. In less than an hour, I would confront my children, knowing this could be our final conversation as a family. After tonight, they would be nothing more than criminals who attempted to murder their own mother for money. At exactly 8 p.m., Nora parked in front of Sergio's house. My heart pounded so fiercely I feared the recording devices might capture its frantic beat. The 2-story house, with its modern light brick facade and meticulously tended garden, looked unchanged, yet now it felt like the stage for a confrontation that would shape the rest of my life. The lights in the main living room cast a warm glow that once would have felt inviting. Tonight, that light seemed menacing, like the deceptive allure of a carefully set trap. Mrs. Morales, act naturally, Nora whispered, checking her emergency phone discreetly. I'll handle all food and drinks. Don't touch anything I haven't cleared. I took a deep breath, adjusted my glasses with the micro camera, and lightly touched the emergency pen in my right pocket to confirm its presence. The wires of the button microphone felt odd against my chest, but I trusted my shirt concealed them well. The door opened before we could ring the bell. Sergio appeared, his face a mix of feigned relief and apparent concern. Mom, thank God you're okay. We were so worried when you vanished from the beach without a word, he exclaimed, embracing me with an enthusiasm that now felt utterly false. given his true intentions. Nora found me feeling dizzy near the parking lot, I said, sticking to the script. I was confused and disoriented. I think it was too much sun for someone my age. Christina emerged from the kitchen, drying her hands on a floral apron. Her smile seemed genuinely relieved, briefly unsettling me. Could she still harbor some genuine affection, or was she simply a masterful actress? Mom, you scared us so much. Raquel's in the living room. She was about to call hospitals to check if you'd been admitted, she said. Approaching to inspect my face with what appeared to be professional medical concern, Raquel hurried from inside the house. Her eyes reflecting an anxiety that could pass for filial love but which I now suspected stemmed from entirely different motives. Mom, are you feeling better? Should I take you to a doctor? Your blood pressure's been irregular lately, she said, grasping my arm with exaggerated care. I'm fine, honey. I just need to rest and maybe have something cool to drink, I replied, letting them lead me to the main living room. The interior of the house reflected the lavish lifestyle my children had sustained with borrowed funds: Italian leather furniture, a massive flat-screen TV, and decorations clearly exceeding their monthly incomes. Every item in the room underscored the unsustainable financial facade my children had maintained. Nora, please grab some mineral water from the fridge, Sergio requested, his tone seemingly casual but laced with subtle tension. Of course, Mr. Sergio, Nora replied, heading to the kitchen, fully aware of her role to control everything offered to me. I settled on the main sofa, positioned to observe my three children's expressions. Christina sat to my right, Raquel to my left, and Sergio stood before me, unconsciously assuming a commanding stance that I found telling. Mom, we've been discussing your financial situation, Sergio began, his voice carrying a pretense of concern. At your age, managing extensive savings and complex banking decisions must be overwhelming. Why bring that up now? I asked, feigning innocent surprise. Christina chimed in with practiced gentleness. Mom, we know Dad always handled much of the paperwork. Without him, you must feel burdened by all that financial responsibility. It's true, some things have become more complicated, I admitted, adhering to the police's strategy. Lately, I felt confused about some documents I recall signing. The three exchanged fleeting glances, undoubtedly caught by the microcamera. Sergio cleared his throat before responding. What kind of documents are you worried about, Mom? Well, I remember signing papers a week ago at our family lunch, but I can't quite recall what they were for. My memory isn't what it used to be, I said, closely watching their reactions. Raquel leaned toward me with a sympathetic look. Mom, those were just routine updates for your health insurance, nothing major. Just paperwork we're managing to help you. But I have a feeling there were large sums involved. Amounts that seemed significant, I pressed. Maintaining a tone of genuine confusion, Sergio settled into the armchair across from me. His posture intended to appear relaxed but betraying subtle tension in his muscles. Mom, perhaps it's time to consider a simpler system for managing your finances, one that relieves your stress and lets you enjoy retirement without administrative burdens, he said. Nora returned with a sealed bottle of mineral water, opening it in my presence before pouring a glass. Her deliberate, cautious movements ensured I saw the liquid was untouched. What kind of system are you proposing? I asked, taking a sip. Christina's face lit up. We could establish a joint account where one of us is authorized to handle your daily expenses. It would spare you the hassle of tracking bills, investments, and bank procedures. A joint account, wouldn't that mean losing control over my money? I asked. Not at all, Mom, Raquel replied with feigned warmth. It's just an administrative tool. You'd retain full ownership. We'd only assist with daily management. Sergio leaned forward, adding, given your episode at the beach today, it might be prudent to have contingencies for your safety and peace of mind. What contingencies? I pressed. If you had another bout of confusion or a temporary health decline, you'd need someone trusted to access your funds for medications, urgent treatments, or emergencies, Christina explained, her tone deceptively reasonable. The conversation unfolded precisely as the police had predicted. My children were offering plausible reasons to seize control of my assets. But I now understood their true intentions. How much money would need to be in this joint account? I asked, feigning serious consideration. Sergio exchanged a fleeting glance with his sisters before responding. To be fully secure, perhaps most of your savings. That way, you'd be covered for any eventuality. Most of it? You mean the $950,000 I have saved? The silence that followed was palpable. By stating the exact amount of my assets, I had given them the confirmation they needed to advance their scheme. Mom, how do you know that exact figure? Raquel asked, unable to fully mask her curiosity. I reviewed my bank statements last week, after our family lunch when I felt so oddly drowsy. For some reason, I couldn't sleep that night and checked my finances. Their nervousness was evident. If I had indeed reviewed my accounts after July 8th, I would have noticed discrepancies from the documents they tricked me into signing while drugged. Did you find anything unusual in your accounts? Christina asked, her voice wavering slightly. Well, there were some transactions I don't recall authorizing, I said, noting the room's tension spike. Sergio stood abruptly and paced toward the window. Mom, banks sometimes process transactions with delays. It's normal for movements to reflect prior authorizations, he said. Transactions involving hundreds of thousands of dollars? Silence engulfed the living room again. I had crossed a threshold, forcing them to either reveal incriminating details or admit their role in the financial irregularities. The atmosphere grew as dense as morning fog. My children exchanged charged glances, their meaning now chillingly clear to me. Sergio halted his pacing and turned to me, his face striving for calm but his eyes revealing mounting desperation. Mom, I think there's a misunderstanding about those bank movements, he said, slowly returning to his seat like a predator assessing its prey. Perhaps we should clarify exactly what you saw in your statements. I saw transfers for significant sums. Christina fidgeted on the sofa, her fingers tapping nervously on the leather cushion. Mom, sometimes we sign bank documents without fully grasping the details. It's normal your age. My age? I replied, feigning offense. Are you suggesting my mind isn't sharp anymore? Raquel quickly stepped in, softening her sister's words. Of course not, Mom. Christina just means managing complex finances can be stressful for anyone. But you all seem to know more about my finances than I recall, I said, letting a hint of suspicion creep into my voice for the first time. A tense silence hung in the air for several seconds. I saw my 3 children exchange glances, seemingly reaching a silent agreement. Sergio took a deep breath and straightened up. Mom, we need to be honest about our family situation. What situation? The 3 of us have hit some financial trouble recently, he admitted tightly. Nothing major, just debts that piled up faster than expected. Christina nodded, backing him up. Mom, you know we've always been responsible, but the economy's been tough. Expenses rose, and salaries haven't kept up. What kind of debts? I asked, projecting motherly concern. Raquel glanced meaningfully at Sergio before responding. Loans for houses, cars, and some investments that didn't pan out. How much do you owe in total? My question landed like a bombshell. The 3 visibly stiffened, and for several seconds, no one spoke. It's a significant amount, Sergio mumbled finally. Hundreds of thousands. Yes, Christina added softly, almost inaudibly. Close to $400,000. My pointed question had an immediate, devastating effect. Sergio paled, Christina let out a faint gasp, and Raquel covered her mouth, as if to retract unspoken words. How do you know that exact figure? Sergio está mered. Because that's the precise amount on transfer documents bearing my signature, a signature I don't recall giving consciously, I replied, maintaining a calm I didn't feel inside. Nora, who had stayed discreetly in a corner, approached to offer more water. Her slow movements giving me time to gauge my children's reactions. Mom, Raquel said, her voice breaking, if you saw those documents, you know we're in a desperate situation. Desperate to what extent? Sergio stood again, pacing in circles, running his hands through his hair. Mom, the people we owe aren't. They're not exactly traditional banks. What does that mean? It means if we don't pay soon, the consequences go beyond credit issues, Christina explained, tears welling in her eyes. What kind of consequences? Raquel sobbed before answering. Mom, they threatened us. They said if we don't pay by Thursday, they'll use more persuasive methods. Who threatened you? Sergio stopped by the window, his back to me. A man named Miguel. Miguel Fernandez. But everyone knows him by another name. Miguel the Blade? Christina whispered. The name confirmed everything the police had told me. My children hadn't just entangled themselves with illegal lenders, they'd chosen the region's most violent and dangerous one. And what did this Miguel demand? The full $380,000, plus accumulated interest, Sergio said, turning to me, desperation etched on his face. In total, nearly $420,000 by the day after tomorrow, July 20th. And if you can't pay? Silence gripped the room again, but this time it carried a different weight, the silence of those who had contemplated horrific possibilities and made irreversible choices. Mom, Raquel said faintly. Miguel explained he has methods to ensure payment, one way or another. What methods? Sergio sat across from me, leaning forward with an intense expression. Mom, if something happened to you, an accident or a serious health issue, we'd inherit immediately. The process would be swift, especially with a clear will and powers of attorney in place. His words chilled me to the core. My own son had just admitted they saw my death as a solution to their financial woes. Are you saying my death would be convenient for you? Christina covered her face with her hands. Mom, we didn't want to think that way, but Miguel pressured us to consider all options. All options? Raquel sobbed harder before confessing. Mom, Miguel said if we couldn't get the money from you voluntarily, we'd have to secure the payment another way. What other way, specifically? Sergio met my gaze, his eyes a mix of shame and desperate resolve. Mom, at your age, a domestic accident wouldn't raise suspicion, a fall down the stairs, a hard issue in the night, something that'd seem natural. And you've already planned this accident? The silence that followed answered more than words could. Christina researched medications that could mimic heart problems, Raquel admitted through sobs. Raquel consulted on rapid cremation to avoid lengthy autopsies. And you, Sergio, what was your role? My eldest son looked at me, his expression a painful blend of anguish and determination. I'd be with you when it happened, ensuring you didn't suffer and that it looked natural. When was this supposed to happen? This week, Christina whispered. Miguel gave us until Thursday, so we'd have to act before then. Tomorrow? Sergio nodded slowly. We planned to invite you over tomorrow. It was going to be the last time. Their confessions confirmed the police's worst suspicions and more. My children hadn't just planned to drug me and steal my money. They'd devised a detailed scheme to murder me and disguise it as a natural accident. And after my death, you'd inherit immediately, pay Miguel, and no one would suspect anything, Raquel said, her voice breaking. You'd be remembered as a beloved mother who passed peacefully at her son's house. Have you realized you're describing the premeditated murder of your own mother? All three began to cry, but their tears no longer touched me. They were tears of self-pity, not genuine remorse. Mom, we had no choice, Sergio groaned. Miguel doesn't accept excuses. If we don't pay, he'll kill us, and then come for you anyway. At that moment, with their full confessions captured by the police devices, I knew my family had crossed an irredeemable line. They were no longer my children but desperate criminals who chose murder to solve their self-inflicted problems. The clock showed 9:15 p.m. when I decided I'd heard enough. Their admissions had surpassed the police's darkest expectations, detailing not only the plan to drug and rob me but also their intent to kill me to hasten their inheritance. My children, I said with a calm that surprised even me, what you've just confessed is one of the gravest crimes under the law. Sergio stiffened, as if my words triggered an alarm. Mom, why say, confessed? You sound like a judge or a cop. His remark made me realize my vocabulary had shifted. After an afternoon with investigators and lawyers, I'd unconsciously adopted their legal phrasing. Sergio, I'm your mother. And you just told me you plan to kill me tomorrow night, I replied, keeping my tone steady. How do you expect me to react? Christina rose from the sofa, her movements jittery. Mom, you're talking strangely. You're usually more emotional with serious family issues. Raquel stood too, scrutinizing my face with growing intensity. Mom, are you okay? Something's off about you since you got here. The room's tension shifted from confessional guilt to defensive suspicion. Their survival instincts were kicking in, sensing inconsistencies in my performance. Different how? I asked, striving to maintain the guise of a confused elderly woman. Normally, after hearing something this upsetting, you'd be yelling, crying, or at least shaking, Sergio said, stepping closer cautiously. But you're too calm, too composed. Nora stepped in from the kitchen. Mrs. Morales has been distressed since the beach episode. The shock might be making her react differently. Shock? Christina echoed, eyeing Nora with rising suspicion. Nora, you found my mother at the beach, right? Where exactly, and how? Near the parking lot, Nora replied. She seemed disoriented and worried about her blood pressure. Nora responded with the rehearsed explanation. Valerie wanted to go to the beach, so we spent the day there, she said, but her voice betrayed a hint of nervousness. Raquel pressed further. Why were you at the beach? It was your day off, and you usually spend it at home with Valerie. Her question revealed an unsettling familiarity with Nora's routine, suggesting my children had been closely monitoring their housekeeper, either out of paranoia or as part of their meticulous planning. Sergio stepped closer, leaning in to scrutinize my face. Mom, something doesn't add up. What doesn't add up? I asked. First, you disappear from the beach without explanation. Then you return hours later with Nora, who, coincidentally, found you. Now you're questioning our finances with legal jargon and reacting with unnatural calm to confessions that should shatter you. His analysis was unnervingly accurate. My performance had held up initially, but maintaining the facade through such shocking revelations demanded acting skills I lacked. I just learned my own children are planning to murder me, I said, partly dropping the pretense. Did you expect hysterics? I expected you to react like our mother, not a trained investigator, Sergio shot back, his voice tightening with suspicion. Christina moved to the window, peering through the curtain. Mom, there are vehicles parked in odd spots on our street, a van I've never seen, a car that's been there too long. My heart raced. Their heightened paranoia was picking up on the police surveillance. What are you implying, Christina? I'm implying your disappearance from the beach wasn't as accidental as you claim, she said, turning to me with a hardening expression. Raquel joined her at the window. Christina's right. There's too much suspicious vehicle activity for this to be a coincidence. Sergio retrieved a small pair of binoculars from a living room cabinet drawer. As he scanned the street, his face grew stern. Mom, the man in the blue car is wearing an earpiece and has communication equipment on the passenger seat, he said coldly. The delivery van has no real company logos, and someone's watching from inside. The situation was unraveling quickly. My children had spotted the police surveillance and now held me responsible for drawing it. What are you suggesting? I asked, though I knew the answer. I'm suggesting you betrayed us, Sergio said, his voice carrying a harshness I'd never heard before. Somehow, you alerted the authorities about our conversations. Nora tried to intervene. Mr. Sergio, Mrs. Morales has been with me all afternoon. She hasn't had a chance to contact anyone. All afternoon with you, Christina repeated with biting sarcasm. A housekeeper who suddenly becomes Mom's constant companion, on the same day police surveillance shows up. Nora just helped me when I felt ill, I protested weakly. Raquel returned from the window, her eyes blazing with growing anger. Mom, you know what I think happened? Nora discovered our plans, warned you, and you both contacted the police. That's ridiculous, I said. Is it? Sergio cut in, stepping toward me menacingly. Then explain why you're wearing a different shirt than the one you had at the beach this morning. His observation struck like a thunderbolt. In preparing for the operation at the station, I had indeed changed my shirt to accommodate the recording devices, a minor detail now threatening the entire plan. I changed because the other one was sweaty after the beach episode, I lied, grasping for an excuse. And where did you get this new shirt? I don't recognize it from your wardrobe, Christina pressed, her tone reflecting months of studying my habits. Before I could respond, Christina hurried over, inspecting my glasses. And this looks like a tiny camera. Raquel lunged toward Nora with a furious glare. You contacted them. You set this up. Mrs. Raquel, please. Nora cried, backing against the wall. Sergio crushed the microphone under his foot in a burst of rage. Mom, you've destroyed our family. You've condemned us all. At that moment, as if on cue, the front and back doors exploded open with a thunderous crash. Police, get on the ground now. Armed officers stormed in from all directions, filling the living room with commanding shouts and the metallic clink of handcuffs. Inspector Grant led the charge, heading straight for me. Joan, are you hurt? I'm fine, Inspector, I replied, watching as my 3 children were forced to the floor, hands cuffed behind their backs. Mom! Sergio screamed as the cuffs snapped on. You betrayed us. We're your family. Mrs. Morales, Officer Ruiz called from the doorway, we've simultaneously arrested Miguel, the Blade Fernandez and 2 associates. We found documents confirming the threats against your family. Christina sobbed hysterically as she was lifted from the floor. Mom, we were your children. How could you do this? You were my children until you decided to murder me for money, I replied with a resolve that surprised me. Raquel glared with pure hatred as she was led to the door. You'll regret this. Family protects each other, not betrays each other. Miss Jimenez, Sergeant Lopez said, approaching Nora, your bravery saved a life and dismantled a criminal organization. You'll have police protection until the legal process concludes. As my 3 children were loaded into separate police vehicles, a wave of relief and profound devastation washed over me. I had saved my life but lost my family forever. The months following that night of July 16, 2023, were a blur of legal proceedings, court testimonies, and revelations that continued to unravel the reality I once knew as my family. The legal process began formally on August 15, 2023, when the district attorney's office filed charges against Sergio, Christina, and Raquel for attempted first-degree murder, conspiracy, and fraudulent administration. The trial unfolded in the county courthouse, a grand room with high ceilings and dark wood-paneled walls, reflecting the gravity of the judicial system, testifying against my own children, who sat in prison uniforms at the defendant's table. Their faces shifting between shame and resentment, was surreal. Prosecutor Linda Carmen, a 45-year-old known for her relentless approach to domestic violence cases, built an airtight case. The recordings from the police operation were played in full, sending shudders through the jury as my children's cold, calculated plans to murder me were laid bare. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Carmen declared in her opening, we face one of the most heinous cases of family betrayal this court has seen. 3 adults, beneficiaries of their mother's love and generosity for decades, conspired to drug her, steal her fortune, and eliminate her to hasten their inheritance. The defense attorneys tried various tactics to lessen the charge's severity. Sergio's lawyer claimed external duress from violent lenders impaired his client's rational decision-making. Christina's counsel argued she acted under her older sibling's psychological influence. Raquel's attorney portrayed her as a collateral victim of her siblings' choices. Yet the prosecution's evidence was overwhelming: audio and video recordings, phone communications, WhatsApp messages detailing the plan, and forensic proof of non-consensual drug administration. Nora Jimenez's testimony was the most compelling. Over 2 days, she recounted how she uncovered the conspiracy, detailing overheard conversations, photographed documents, and her moral choice to risk her safety to protect me. Your Honor, Nora said, her voice steady yet emotional, Mrs. Morales treated me with dignity when I needed it most. As a single mother, she ensured I kept my job with fair conditions. When my daughter was ill, she paid the medical bills without prompting. I couldn't let such a kind person be murdered by her own family. Her words deeply moved the courtroom. Visibly affecting several jurors, the trial's most devastating moment came when the full recording of my children's confessions played. Hearing their voices coldly discuss hastening my departure and staging an unsuspicious accident shattered me but reinforced my resolve for justice. During his testimony, Sergio addressed me directly. Mom, we never would have gone through with it. It was just desperation, words spoken under pressure. I met his gaze and replied calmly, Sergio, the recordings show specific dates, methods, and contingencies to erase evidence. That's not just words, that's criminal premeditation. Christina appealed to my maternal instincts. Mom, we're your family. We made terrible mistakes, but we're still your children. Doesn't that mean anything? It meant everything for 78 years, I said, my voice breaking. But you destroyed that when you valued my money over my life. Raquel's testimony was the most manipulative. Mom, Dad would be heartbroken to see you destroy our family. He taught us that family forgives. Her words stung, but I drew strength from Robert's memory to respond. Your father taught me about unconditional love, but also about justice and protecting the innocent. He would never have tolerated you plotting to murder your own mother. The trial's most revealing phase came when the prosecutor presented additional evidence from the expanded investigation. Detectives had tracked my children's financial activities over the past 2 years, uncovering a pattern of lavish spending fueled by usurious loans. Your Honor, Prosecutor Carmen stated, displaying bank records, the defendants' debts were not the result of unforeseen hardships or economic downturns. They deliberately pursued unsustainable lifestyles, funding luxuries with loans at criminal interest rates, fully aware they could not repay them with legitimate income. The evidence included receipts for extravagant dinners costing more than an average worker's weekly salary, clothing and jewelry purchases in the thousands, and international vacations entirely financed by predatory loans. From the moment they incurred these debts, Carmen continued, the defendants knew their only path to solvency was accessing their mother's assets. Their father's death in 2021 merely hastened their criminal timeline. The financial investigator's testimony was particularly damning. Based on our calculations, the defendants would have needed to work 47 years without personal expenses to repay their debts with legitimate income. Eliminating their mother was not a desperate last resort, it was their financial strategy from the outset. Miguel "the Blade" Fernandez, testifying from prison, provided further details. Likely motivated by a plea deal. The Morales family weren't innocent victims, he said with a cynical smirk. They approached me with a detailed plan, knowing exactly how much money the old lady had and how to access it. When their initial attempts to get it voluntarily failed, they proposed a faster alternative, with all the details already planned. In closing arguments, the defense made a final plea for leniency, emphasizing the family tragedy and arguing that imprisoning my children would leave me alone in my later years. Prosecutor Carmen countered decisively, Your Honor, the defendants forfeited any claim to compassion when they destroyed the family bonds they chose to betray. Joan Morales will not be alone, she will be safe. Free from those who proved willing to murder her for financial gain. On December 18, 2023, after 3 days of deliberation, the jury delivered unanimous guilty verdicts on all charges. The presiding judge pronounced the sentences with solemn gravity. Sergio Morales, Cristina Morales, and Raquel Morales are found guilty of attempted first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit a crime, fraudulent administration of another's assets, and administration of controlled substances without consent. Each is sentenced to 15 years in prison, with no possibility of parole before serving 10 years. Hearing those words, I felt a complex blend of relief, sorrow, and final justice. My children faced the consequences of their actions, but the pain of losing those once central to my life remained unmitigated. Miguel the Blade and his associates received harsher sentences, 18 years for Miguel for leading the criminal organization and 12 years each for his accomplices. For aggravated extortion and serious threats. As I left the courtroom for the final time, Sergio shouted from the defendant's box, "Mom, you'll regret this one day. We're your only family." I turned to him, my voice steady. "Sergio, my family died the night you planned to kill me. The criminals going to prison today just bear my children's names." The months after the trial marked a transformative chapter in my life. January 2024 brought a sense of freedom I hadn't felt since Robert's death. For the first time in years, I slept peacefully, knowing no one was plotting against me. My financial choices were truly mine, and those close to me valued me for myself, not my wealth. My first major decision was to legally secure my bond with Nora and Valerie. On February 15, 2024, with my lawyer, Mr. Garcia, the same attorney Sergio had once manipulated, I finalized a family trust to ensure their financial future. "Joan," Mr. Garcia said as we reviewed the documents, "it's remarkable how you've turned such a traumatic experience into an opportunity to forge genuine family ties." "Mr. Garcia," I replied, signing with a steady hand, "I've learned that true family isn't defined by blood but by loyalty, selfless care, and a commitment to protect one another." Nora wept when I explained the trust's details. I had created a full educational fund for Valerie, covering primary school through university, including postgraduate studies if she chose. I also established a security fund to ensure Nora's lifelong financial stability. "Mrs. Morales, this is too generous," she protested, her voice thick with emotion. "We didn't expect anything for doing what was right." "That's exactly why you deserve it," I said, embracing her like the daughter I never expected to have again. "You saved my life without seeking reward. Now I want to ensure you have the opportunities my biological children squandered." Valerie's presence in my life felt effortlessly natural. This bright 9-year-old, with her boundless curiosity and innate kindness, constantly reminded me why it's worth building a better future. In March 2024, I enrolled her in a prestigious bilingual school with advanced academic programs. "Grandma Joan," she said one day, using the title she'd spontaneously chosen, "why do my classmates say it's strange that my grandma isn't really my grandma?" Her words touched me deeply. "Valerie, some grandparents are lucky enough to choose their grandchildren, and some grandchildren choose their grandparents. We chose each other." Our afternoons became filled with routines that gave my life renewed purpose. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I took Valerie to piano lessons at the Municipal Conservatory. Saturday mornings, we attended swimming lessons together at the yacht club. On Sundays, after church, we visited museums, parks, or strolled through historic downtown, where she shared her dreams and aspirations. "I want to be a doctor like the one who helped Mom when I was sick," she confided during one Sunday walk. "But I also love music. Can I be a doctor and a pianist?" "Valerie, you can be anything your heart and hard work allow," I replied, buying us ice cream near the cathedral. "Your new financial security will open doors, but your choices and dedication will shape what you do with them." My spiritual life deepened significantly during this time. Father Anthony, who had guided me through the darkest days after Robert's death, became my partner in creating something meaningful. "Joan," he said during a post-mass conversation in April 2024, "you've been given a second chance at life, literally. Have you considered how you could use this experience to help others in similar situations?" His words struck a chord with my conscience. "Father Anthony, I've thought about that a lot," I replied. "There must be other elderly people facing family manipulation, isolation, or financial abuse without the resources or support I had." "Exactly," Father Anthony replied. "And you have the experience and financial means to make a difference." Over the following weeks, we developed the Rose Center for Senior Support, named after my late husband, Robert, to honor his memory while serving the community in a way he would have wholeheartedly endorsed. In May 2024, I purchased a 3-story building near the parish, previously a community center. Over 4 months, I collaborated with architects, social workers, and gerontology experts to transform it into a functional, welcoming space. The center featured offices for free legal advice, rooms for psychological therapy, classrooms for financial protection workshops, and a specialized library for seniors. We also established a 24-hour emergency hotline for elderly individuals facing abuse or manipulation. Nora accepted my offer to become the center's administrative director. Her experience detecting abuse and understanding dysfunctional family dynamics made her ideal for leading daily operations. "Mrs. Morales," she said during our first week of operation in September 2024, we've received 17 calls from people suspecting family manipulation. 3 cases are as severe as yours was. What kind of manipulation? I asked. 2 involve adult children pressuring parents to transfer properties. And 1 appears to be grandchildren drugging their grandfather to access his pension. Realizing my experience was part of a broader issue spurred me to intensify our efforts. I hired 2 more social workers, partnered with family law firms, and developed community education programs on elder financial abuse. During this time, I received 47 letters from my children in prison, all following a similar pattern: pleas for forgiveness, promises of change, appeals to family unity, and occasional veiled threats about my future loneliness. The first arrived in February 2024 from Sergio. Dear Mom, every day in prison, I reflect on our mistakes. We were desperate, confused, influenced by evil people, but you're still our mother, and we're your children. Please visit us to let us explain what happened. I read each letter carefully but never responded, not out of cruelty, but because I recognized the difference between genuine remorse and continued manipulation. Their letters lacked full acknowledgement of their actions' gravity, always offering justifications to minimize guilt. In October 2024, Christina wrote, Mom, Dad would be devastated if you rejected your children. He believed in Christian forgiveness. Haven't we paid enough? Her letter, exploiting Robert's memory, stung deeply. Instead of replying directly, I wrote to the prison chaplain, Father Gonzalez, my late husband Robert believed in forgiveness, but also in justice, protecting the innocent, and consequences for grave actions. Forgiving doesn't mean erasing legal consequences or restoring relationships with those who proved willing to murder for gain. I've forgiven my children in my heart to free myself from resentment, but that doesn't mean exposing myself to their toxic influence or pretending our family can be restored. By late 2024, as I wrote in my journal, a habit developed for emotional healing, I reflected on my life's transformation. 18 months ago, I was a vulnerable widow manipulated by my children, living in unseen danger. Now, I'm a grandmother to a wonderful girl who brings me joy, an adoptive mother to an extraordinary woman who risked everything to save me, and the founder of an organization helping dozens in similar situations. On December 23, 2024, 3 years after Robert's death, we held a celebration at the Rose Center. In our first 4 months, we assisted 112 seniors, prevented 6 serious cases of financial abuse, and provided legal and emotional support to many. Valerie, now 10 and thriving in her new school, played Schubert's Ave Maria, Robert's favorite, on the piano with such skill and emotion that he would have wept with pride. Father Anthony offered a blessing: Lord, bless this family, formed not by chance but by conscious choice rooted in love, loyalty, and justice. May their example inspire others to see that true family is built on shared values, not blood. Watching Nora and Valerie under the center's Christmas lights, surrounded by seniors who found safety through our work, I felt a profound peace I hadn't known in years. My fortune, once coveted by my biological children to the point of plotting my murder, now served a purpose Robert would have championed: protecting the vulnerable, creating opportunities for the deserving, and building a legacy of active compassion. That night, in my renewed home filled with childish laughter, meaningful conversations, and the security of true family bonds, I wrote my final journal entry of the year. At 78, I've learned that the deepest betrayals can lead to unexpected blessings. I lost 3 children who became greedy strangers but gained a loyal daughter and a precious granddaughter who fill my life with purpose. My money, once a mortal danger, is now a tool for protection and opportunity. Robert would be proud of the family we've built and the good we're doing in his memory. And as this story fades into the shadows of your mind, dissolving into the silent spaces where memory and mystery intertwine, know it was never just a story. It was an awakening, a raw pulse of human truth wrapped in whispered secrets and veiled emotions. Every word a shard of fractured reality, every sentence a bridge between worlds seen and unseen. In the liminal space between the light of revelation and the dark abyss of the unsaid, stories weave their most potent magic, stirring the deepest chambers of your soul. They awaken unspoken fears, buried desires, and fragile hopes that cling to your heart like delicate embers. This is the power of these tales, digital confessions whispered into the void, where anonymity masks truth, and every listener becomes a keeper of secrets too heavy to bear alone. Now, this trembling echo of another's reality intertwines with your own shadowed narrative, sparking an undeniable curiosity, an insatiable hunger to uncover what lies beyond. What stories remain untold? What mysteries hover just out of reach, waiting for you to grasp them? Hold tight to this electric thread of wonder and unease, for it connects us across the vast, unseen web of human experience. If your heart races, if your mind lingers on the what-ifs and maybes, then the story has worked its magic, weaving itself into the fabric of your being. Before you step away, remember, Every story here is an invitation to look deeper, listen harder, and embrace both darkness and light. If you felt lost or changed, even slightly, honor this connection by keeping the flame alive. Like this video if the story haunted you. Subscribe to join the fellowship of seekers chasing unseen truths, and ring the bell to greet the next confession, shadow, or revelation rising from the depths. Here, we don't merely tell stories, we summon them, becoming vessels for the forgotten, hidden, and unspoken. And you, dear listener, are now part of this sacred ritual. Until the next tale finds you in the quiet hours, keep your senses sharp, your heart open, and never stop chasing the whispers in the silence. Thanks for watching. Take care. Good luck. This story may have sparked new questions or revived old memories. Every day on my channel, fresh experiences and moments create stories that connect us all. Each of us has a unique journey, seeking to understand the world in our own way. These moments remind us of our shared humanity, sometimes joyful, sometimes sorrowful, always learning. If this story resonated, share it with friends. Your thoughts and feedback are invaluable, inspiring us to create better content. Every story offers a unique perspective, and our goal is to embrace diverse, relatable narratives. These tales show us that life's journey varies for everyone, and through others' stories, we gain new insights. You're welcome to share your own experiences, your stories matter to us. If you enjoyed this video, please leave feedback. We strive to create content that sparks new ideas and brightens your mind. Even if you've seen this before, your input helps us improve and offer fresh perspectives. Today's story is just one of many shared on my channel and worldwide, a reminder of how we connect through shared experiences to understand life. This video is an example of storytelling that explores different facets of existence, fostering learning and growth. Thank you for your time, and stay tuned for more stories. If you haven't already, like and follow for more compelling content. Your support fuels us to deliver thought-provoking, heartwarming tales. Until next time, take care and stay curious. *.